Hello everyone and welcome to the Halo Gaming channel. Welcome to the people that are watching my videos and welcome back to them, and welcome to anyone who's new to watching to the channel. You're very welcome and I hope you enjoy the content as much as I enjoyed creating it. So this is Booster Blaster Build Part 5. In the last two episodes we saw me struggling with a few issues. Originally I was trying to get the Cinemachine working within Unity to get the camera to follow the player, and when I got sick of that because it wasn't working, I moved on to the cross-platform input manager to try and get that working so that the controls would work on PC and console, with the idea of putting in a virtual joystick so it could also be used on mobile, and that didn't work, so I got sick of that, and then I moved on to something that I thought would be easier, which was the explosion prefab, so that when the player died it would explode. And that, I had issues with that as well. Not as easy as I thought it was going to be. That's where we left off in the last episode, was me trying to get it to work. So we're going to see how far I get with it and what else I do. I have remembered to mute my audio this time, so you cannot hear my Spotify playlists. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but I don't know how the whole copyright thing works on YouTube, so I don't want to get done for copyright infringement if I can help it. So you just have to put up with listening to me. Unfortunately, I know. But hey, hopefully I can be entertaining enough without having to listen to my taste in music, which is not for everybody, I would admit. But hey, I like it, so that's what I listen to. So Visual Studio, we're opening Visual Studio. And it takes a while, so let's just get it done. Open Visual Studio, open Visual Studio. There we go. So we're on the rocket ship script. We have it destroying the ship after 1 second, and then it loads a new scene after 1 second. In the last episode, I put the explosion prefab, the instantiate the explosion code thing on the obstacle script. I was saying I don't think that was a good idea. I still don't think that's a good idea. Obstacles should not be responsible for creating the explosions for the player, and it wasn't working properly either. So now looks like I'm trying to put that back onto the player, which is a good idea. That's where it should be. Because I think I managed to get it working fairly well with that when I hit the obstacles, the explosion did happen, and it happened in the right place. I think at the end of the last video, that's where we were at. But because I only had the obstacle scripts on the moving obstacles and not the walls and the floor and everything, it didn't work when I hit everything. And as I said, I could have just put the script on all those things, the obstacle script. But I didn't need the script on them because those things weren't going to move. And the only reason that the moving obstacles have the script is to make them moving obstacles. So we're going to try and instantiate the explosion prefab at this object's position, which is the rocket ship. And I keep getting these errors, and I was saying in the last video that it annoys me so much that I know that this is like 90% to the way to do it properly. And it's that last 10% that's stopping me from getting it to work. And I think that I just have to say transform that position and the rotation. I got it working in the obstacles somehow. So I just need to basically copy what I did to the obstacle onto the rocket ship, and it should work. But it annoys me that it's surprisingly difficult to instantiate an object at a position that you want. Game object.transform, positions moved. Don't know why. Don't know what I'm doing. Okay. I'm going to get rid of that. So we're just going to say the transform of the game object. And we're going to destroy the game. But if you just, I don't know. We'll see how it works. Because I'm not entirely sure. But, we can just try. Okay, so we're going to go back into Unity. We're going to click on our game object, our rocket ship. We're removing the Right, so we've got a game object that has a script. It's looking for an explosion prefab. We're going to take the explosion prefab and drop it into that, and then we're going to see if it works. I feel like I've just taken a rocket, or the... No, maybe I didn't. Oh, so it does work. So it's instantiating the explosion in the correct place, but it's still instantiating it as a child of the rocket ship. Which means that when the rocket ship explodes, when the rocket ship is destroyed, as in after the 1 second that we've put in the code, it also destroys the explosion. So the explosion doesn't have time to finish playing. And that is not ideal. Now I could... so we're just going to get rid of all this because I don't need this. This is basically all the script that deals with instantiating the explosion when the player hits the obstacle. And as I said, I don't need it on the obstacle script, so we'll just take it out. I could increase the length of time it takes for the player ship to be destroyed after it collides with something, so that the explosion has enough time to play out. And that would work. That would be okay. My only issue with that is that you can still see the ship within the explosion, which I don't like. I mean, ideally what I'd like to happen is the ship to disappear as when the explosion happens, so that it looks like it's being destroyed rather than there's been an explosion and the ship just kind of blinks out of existence. We're going to take the rocket ship, load new scene. That was fine. But I'm taking it away. Okay, so we're not... Okay. Let's take a look. Let's not judge too quickly, okay? I get frustrated at past me a lot. So let's just see what he's doing first before we call him a fucking idiot. So I'm decreasing the amount of time. Nope, I'm not. I'm leaving at 1. I'm taking out invoke. I'm making a public game object player so that I can access the player in the obstacle script. I don't need this line, explosion, because I've taken everything to do with the explosion out of the obstacles and put it back into the player where it should have been. But now I'm going to say, put back in a non-collision enter, and if the collision object... Oh, it's all gone. Sad. So if the player collides with the obstacle, I'm going to invoke nothing. I'm going to invoke load new scene on the obstacle script. Again, I don't know why I'm doing this. Because, again, the walls and the ceiling and the floor don't have an obstacle script on it. So if you collide with that, it's not going to load a new scene. And also, there's no issue with it being on... Oh, there was an issue, wasn't there? Okay. I was going to say there was no issue with it being on the player script. But when I destroy the player, it's not going to run the line of code to load the new scene. So there is actually an issue with it being there. Now, what I would do now to solve that problem would be I would probably create an empty game object within the scene, and I would call it something like level controller or level load, whatever, just something like that. Level controller is usually what I call it. I would create a bool in the player, a boolean that said is player dead, call it that maybe, set it to false to begin with, and then when the player collides with something, set that boolean to be true. So if it collides with anything, not anything, if it collides with any of the things that aren't friendly or finish, it'll instantiate the explosion. It will destroy the player game object, No, it won't do that. It will instantiate the explosion, then it will set the Boolean to true. Is dead is true. And then it will destroy the player game object. And in the level controller object, I could put a script on it that says you can access the player. So put in a public game object player, drag the player into that, and then say player.bool. So once you do that, if you make it public, if you make a bool public, or any variable or function or anything in a script, it can be accessed by another script. So if I make a public bool within the player, and then access the player through the level controller script, this is all sounding very complicated. I hope this is making sense. I do know what I'm talking about. You access it through the level controller script, and you say if player dot is dead equals true, then you can load the new scene or invoke a load new scene function after a certain amount of time if you want to wait for the explosion particle to finish. That's how I would do it now, if that makes sense. But at this stage, because this is just, I've only had 1 year of college at this point. I mean, this has been happening during the summer after my first year, so I've not learned that much. So I did learn a lot more than I thought this year, actually, which is quite. And that's the other problem with it. Kind of, it's because it's being instantiated as a child of the player. It's following the player around. So what you'd want. That is why I want it to be instantiated as its own object, and then the player to be destroyed immediately. Because as long as it's a child of the player, it'll follow the player if it moves. If it instantiates as its own game object, and the player is not immediately destroyed, then the player can still move, and you'll see it just kind of fly away from the explosion, which would not be good. So you need it to be its own object that doesn't destroy when the player is destroyed, and then destroy the player as soon as it happens, so that you can't see the ship fly out of the explosion, and the explosion is not following the ship around. We'll see if I figure that out. I kind of hope I do. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if I don't. Because, hey, that's kind of par for the course with these videos, I think, so far. I do my best. It doesn't always work. And hey, that's life. That's game dev. That's kind of everything, really. Especially when you're learning it. Things, everyone's got to start somewhere. And then you kind of just figure it out as you go. And the more you practice, the better you get, and the easier things become. So because it's been almost a year since I worked on this project or even looked at these videos, I'm kind of interested. I don't even remember exactly what I did. So it's interesting to look back at them and to see how past me tried to fix these problems and solve these problems. And looking back at it now, present me can kind of look at them and go, well, I'd have done that differently, or this is how I know that would have worked. We did see earlier that I put an obstacle script onto at least this wall because we saw that moving, and I'd need to set that to 0 so it didn't move. So that's one way around, me not having the obstacle script on everything and then putting something into an obstacle script that would need, loading the scene when the player dies shouldn't be done by the obstacles. It should either be done by the player or a separate entity like the level controller game object I was talking about. So we're creating a ceiling. We're putting an obstacle script on the ceiling, and we're just saying don't move. So I am kind of putting obstacle scripts on everything, and dragging the player into these, the inspector for the obstacle script, because I made a public game object in the obstacle script called player, and that is what I was saying. If I had a level controller object, this is what I would do. And then in code, I could access every component that is in this game object by saying, go to the player and then access the script component. And then within that script component, find the bool is alive, and it will do that. And then you can make the game do something based on whether that bool is true or false. And you can use it for many other reasons, which we'll get to when they come up in a project. If and when they come up in a project, which I'm sure they will at some stage. I have about, where are we now? The 27th of April today. So 27th of April. Shit. I think some of my assignments are due today. Well, once this video is done, I will get cracking on working on some of those. I'm very near the end of this year of college work. I'm almost done all my assignments. I think I have like 2 written assignments left to do, and then the final build of the massive third-person sci-fi RPG game that I'm working on. So that'll be fun. We'll get that done, and then it'll be summer again. And I can either come back to doing Booster Blaster, or I can continue working on some of the projects that I was working on in college and expand on them, or I could work on something else. Whether that be a game prototype or just practice specific skills within game dev. If there's anything you would like specifically to see, if you want to see more videos on 3D modeling or on Unity or on anything to do with game dev, just comment below. I'm always looking for suggestions on more content for the channel. So whatever you guys want to see, if there is anything specific, particle effects, visual effects graph, shader graph, I can do some videos of me muddling through that and trying to figure it out, and we can all laugh at my ineptitude together. But yeah, so comment below if there's anything specific you want to see, especially over the summer, because I will have a lot more time on my hands, because we don't know how long this isolation, quarantine, COVID-19 thingy is going to last. We got an email from college there saying that next year might not reopen until October. So it'll be a while. So we get there. It doesn't load the new level. I had that working in a previous video. How did I fuck that up? Scene with build index couldn't be loaded because it has not been added to the build settings. Interesting, because it was added to the build settings before, so I don't know why. So there's no scenes in the build. I don't know how that happened. But you can also see here, I've made a 3rd level, which I didn't record me doing. But again, that's just duplicating one of these levels and moving some obstacles around to make it look a little bit different. And I have a sandbox, which is interesting. That would be what I would call my test scenes. I think I've discussed that in a previous video. That's how I test things. It comes in very handy for you doing a big project where you're trying to test something, but the scene is so big that it kind of tanks your performance sometimes, especially within Unity. And I have found, especially while I'm recording Unity and working in a big project, Unity doesn't like OBS recording it when it's doing some high def, big ass stuff. So I've added those scenes into the build index, which means that this should work again. So when I get to the end of this level, if I can, it should load level 2, and then if I get to the end of level 2, it should load level 3. I'm getting better. Level 2. Level 2 is starting with my the first prototype ship I made out of cylinders and cubes, because I have not replaced that with the new one. But I can do that. That's easy. Just delete that one and then... So every level you have to do, you do have to make sure that you're using, just replace your, replace your placeholder assets with the actual assets you want. So that's what I'm going to do now, I would guess. Just go into the scene. Or I'm just going to get rid of the rocket here first because I don't need that one. So this is the new one that I made. And if I go into the scenes, then I can replace it with this. And because this is a prefab, it will hold everything in it. So it will hold all the scripts and the explosion prefabs that are part of it. So that's the great thing about prefabs, is that you can kind of make them once and then reuse them over and over and over again. And I've said it a lot that is the best way to do game dev, is to kind of give yourself as little work as possible. If you can reuse any kind of assets or scripts, or even if you need to tweak them, duplicate them, tweak them, and then save them as a separate asset, if you can do it, because it's a lot better than making something from scratch when you don't need to. Just give yourself more work, because this kind of stuff is time consuming as it is, and if you're giving yourself more work than you need to do, you're just kind of, it's kind of crazy. So we're just going to drag in the rocket ship. It has, as you can see, it's got the script on it. It's got the prefab in it. Everything else should be relatively similar. Should be the same. These ones don't have the obstacle script on them, because I did that in level 1, not in level 2. Although if you make a change to a prefab, right? So these are all the prefabs that are in my project. These are all the things that are in this current level. But you see the way they're blue? That's because they are a prefab. So if I was to do something to this and then hit apply, it would apply to this prefab, wherever it's gone, obstacle 1, or obstacles, because this is obstacles. So it would apply to this prefab. And then anywhere this prefab is being used, those changes would be saved. So I could do it in level 1, add in the script, click apply, and then in every level that uses this, that script would be added. So that's another way of saving time. Same with the game object. So that's why prefabs are very handy and good to use. It saves you having to just drag and drop in every single scene. So if you've got a prefab, make use out of it, and don't do what Johnny Don't does, which is make more work for yourself than you need. It's an unfortunate name for somebody, wouldn't it be? Johnny Don't. Or Donnie Don't? Donnie Don't. Don't do what Donnie Don't does. So as you can see, just the problem with this, or with what I was saying about the prefabs, is that it would also save any of these movement settings if you apply stuff back to the prefabs. So there is a kind of you got to be careful of that. If you want them to have different values, you cannot apply those values back to the prefab, or it will save it to everything. But for the important stuff, like having a rocket ship and each of these having a script on it, you can apply them back to the prefab and then go through and change the individual values for what you need. But just be aware that if you're changing a value and you apply it back to a prefab, it will change it on everything. So don't do that either. Well, double-edged sword, really, prefabs, but they certainly help more than they hinder, I think. Especially if you know what you're trying to do with them. Which I kind of do, hopefully, maybe. So this is just me adding scripts and stuff. So we'll just kind of scrub through this, because this is all just dragging and dropping, the same kind of thing, making sure everything has an obstacle script. So we're going to play it. You'll notice I still haven't fixed my explosions, because it still follows the ship. I'm curious to know if I ever did fix it. And what I'll do is, I think I have a build of it somewhere, so I'll check that. And we'll see if I... Oh, nice. We'll see if I... Oh, wow. We'll see if I did fix it. I have a feeling I did, but I don't remember. So this is level 2. So as long as I don't die, I can make sure that this... Nope, died, because that's going to go back to level 1. I think what I'm trying to do is desperately just get to the end and make sure that level 2 loads to level 3. And again, easy way to test it, just move the ship. Hit play, it'll hit the landing pad and should load level 3. It is not, it is reloading level 2, which is why you see it just constantly jumping, because it's just reloading level 2 over and over and over again. Load level 2, hit the thing, load level 2, hit the thing. So, that is in my rocket ship. So, I'm just saying, if you hit the finish line, load level 2. So I need to fix that. I know there's a way to kind of increment through the scenes in the build index. I'm not entirely sure how to do it. I feel like maybe this is how to do it. I don't remember how to do it because I think I wanted to do that in another prototype I was working on this year. And what I ended up doing was just putting a separate script on each finish point. So at the end of level 1, I had a level 1 script, a level 2 script, and a level 3 script. And the level 1 script said if you got there, it loaded level 2. The level 2 script said if you got there, it loaded level 3. And the level 3 script said if you got to the end, it loaded like the you win scene or the you win screen. So I was going to say, I don't think it's that easy. Well, see, this is the thing. I think it is that easy, but I don't think that's the way to do it. So you're loading scene 1. I want to get the current scene. So I think it would be a thing that, like, make the index, make the array. So this is level 3, which I don't think you've seen. So what I did, just sidebar, just very quickly, I took some of the obstacles, I brought them into 3D Studio Max, and I just drilled a hole into them, or booleaned out a hole, because I wanted to see, can I get the ship to fly through the holes? Just block with hole. That's a very good name for them. Just to see. Because then, and again, I could put in movement scripts on these. I don't know if I have them moving, but I could also have them rotate. So, I mean, that would be kind of interesting. Just other ways to make levels a little bit different, a little bit more interesting, and add a bit more of a challenge to the games. But we shall see how this works. Yeah, anyway, as I was saying, I think if you create the array, the game object array for the levels, and you need to get how many levels are in that array, then you would need to get what the current level is. So what number in the array is that? And then when you get to the end, that's when you need to increase. I have one of them moving, so we'll see. That's when you need to increase the, go on to the next level in the array. And I mean, in my head, I know, this is the thing with coding, in my head, I know kind of basically what to do, but it doesn't always work. It's like when you saw me in previous videos kind of going, I know all the different words to use in code, I just don't know what order to put them in, or even sometimes the right place. Hey, that was impressive. And it's died at the easiest part. But it's not reloading a level. My guess would be that doesn't have an obstacle script on it, which is why I don't think obstacles should have control over loading levels or destroying the ship. Okay, and now we're in 3D Studio Max. That was the reference image that Michaela very kindly drew for me. So while I didn't actually record me making it, which I thought I had, at least there you get to see the drawing that you did, and that's what I based the ship on. Now this is, I believe this, so this is the last recording I currently have for this project. And I believe this is sometime after the previous recording, which was the first half of this video that you're watching. I had an idea, an epiphany. I had a great idea to make the levels a sphere. And the sphere would rotate and have obstacles within the sphere that rotates with it. So then you have to time like going up and going across because these things are connected to the sphere and they're rotating with the sphere. So I thought that would be kind of cool. So this is me I hadn't even finished the prototype. But this was just me kind of going, well, let's try this out and see if it works and see if I can get it to work. Because I think it might be a fun idea, and I mean, I could be wrong. It might be the worst idea in the world. But there's only one way to find out, and that's to actually go ahead and give it a go. Give it a good old college try, as they say. So this is what we're doing. We're going to I'm in 3D Studio Max basically just to make a sphere. I'm not actually going to model anything within the sphere. I'm not going to add any of the obstacles to it yet. I just want to kind of get a rotating sphere, because I know that I could code it in Unity to rotate, or I could even use the animator to have the sphere rotate on a looped animation so that it will continue to go around. And the other thing about it is I could also have it, if I was doing it through code, I could increase the speed after a certain amount of time so that the difficulty increases. All my little videos or pictures for character designs. If anybody saw the Supermax video, the very first video I uploaded, that didn't have any audio in it, just I had to upload something to put onto a website for a web design module in first year. It's the video of me tracing a Labrador in Photoshop. Never used Photoshop before in my life. My tracing skills will show you how bad my actual art skills are, because for a trace, that was terrible. So there were some other images there for cats, and again I got Michaela to do she did the penguin, and she did a tortoise for me that I got to use for those assignments as well. So like I said, it's handy to have somebody who can draw, because you need artists in game dev. If you're not an artist yourself, you need somebody to do like the UI stuff, somebody to do any sprites that you might need, somebody to do backgrounds, somebody to do the concept art if you want to 3D model something like I did with the ship. I mean, I knew I wanted a ship, but if I had just opened my 3D modeling program of choice and tried to model a ship, I wouldn't, who knows what I would have come out of. I wouldn't have had any idea. I would have just been tugging at faces and edges and vertices and stuff, and then maybe have gotten some kind of ship shape out of it. But it's certainly handier to have somebody that can draw on your team. So if you can't draw, make friends with somebody who can. They come in very handy, and then be nice to them so that they keep doing this kind of stuff for you. So I'm putting materials onto the ship, onto the sphere. Metal materials, because I'm thinking kind of interior of a space station that you're trying to get out of, or that kind of thing. So just putting in some materials. The thing is, I need to, if I haven't done it already, I'd need to flip the normals so that the materials appear on the inside instead of the outside, because normally the interior would be kind of transparent. So if I had gone inside the sphere, there wouldn't have been any faces on the interior. So you would have been able to see out through it, and then once you're outside it, it would have been a solid sphere. So you flip the normal so that from the inside you can see everything here, or just make it double-sided. There's another way to do it. So we're going to export the sphere as an FBX. No, we're not. I mean, yes, we are, but I don't know why I clicked out of that. Export selected. Yeah, onto the desktop as an FBX. Just call it sphere, maybe. Yeah, just sphere. Oh, sphere level. See, naming conventions. It makes sense now. It's not just a sphere, it's the sphere level. And then embed media, because I have some materials on it. It doesn't really matter for this, because like I said, it's just a placeholder, it's a prototype, it's just a proof of concept. So we're going to go into Unity. I didn't have Unity open? Okay, well Unity takes a while to open as well, so we're going to skip on to Unity being open. And we are going to probably create a new scene. Duplicate level 3. so that it will be level 4. And then we're going to go into level 4, which we're in. So this is level 4, and then we're going to make some changes. So this is how I make all my levels. We're going to bring in the sphere level into my project. So here it is. So then that's going to go into the level, and we're going to see how it works. Will it be as fun as I think it will be? Is it a good idea? Is it possible to do it? I certainly think it is possible. Whether or not it's a good idea remains to be seen. Yes, so we're gonna take the sphere and just drop it in. Plunk, right in the middle. Now, as you can see from the outside, it is transparent, so I did flip normals. So you're seeing into the sphere, which is why you can see the sides there, but you can't see. And now, once I scale it up and we're inside, you can see the interior of the sphere. So we are inside the sphere. I'm just going to make it roughly the size of the level, not that it really matters. Make sure that this is actually inside the sphere, because it's kind of hard to tell with the fact that you can see through this edge of it. It looks like it's kind of sitting in front of a circle. And now for the fun part. Will the ship fly around the sphere? If it does, what I want is if it collides with the edge of the sphere, it will be destroyed. Because I think my issue was, if this is a rocket ship, spaceship game, what bothered me was that, I mean, obviously it's not super realistic, but it bothered me that if I was having it in space, space doesn't have grounds or walls, and then I was like, well, how can I kind of make it make sense that a ship is flying through a place that has all these obstacles and walls? I mean, obviously they don't need to make sense. I mean, look at Super Mario. It's a plumber running through a land with pipes that can go down and plants that eat it and floating platforms, and, you know, nobody bats an eye. That's just the game. So I mean, it is possible to do that kind of thing. Suspend your disbelief and just play the game for the sake of playing it, because it's fun. So we've got a sphere collider on the sphere, which means that I can collide with it. So we're putting the obstacle script onto the sphere, and we're just not going to move it because we don't want the sphere to actually move. We will eventually want it to rotate. And when we play the game, the ship has disappeared and is dead. So what happened there? Ship disappeared and then died. Why? Now I know the answer, but do you? If I look at this, and I don't know if I will, but if I don't maximize it on play, and then I watch it in the scene view, we will see exactly what's happening. So, Visual Studios. So I'm gonna try and fix it in code, even though I don't know what the problem is. Obstacles. Are we gonna just take out the? No, we're not. Okay. Let's see, a script there, joystick move. That was me attempting to have a virtual joystick to use for mobile devices. Another thing I couldn't get to work. Apparently it's actually an issue with Unity and the mobile inputs that may have been fixed since then. Basically, it didn't register a virtual button being held down. It only registered presses, individual presses. So if I held down a button to make the ship, like to do the thrust and make the ship move, it wouldn't do it. I'd have to like hit the button over and over again, and it would start to kind of move a little bit. And I went online and I posted in forums and stuff, and it turns out that while there is a very complicated, hacky way around it, it is an issue with Unity itself that just it didn't recognize, for mobile devices, didn't recognize a held down input, which I hope they fixed, because it seems strange to me that would be a thing. And if they fixed it, then maybe I could get it to work for mobile. So we're in I'm making a script for the sphere level, and I'm putting the on collision exit. So if I leave the sphere, we're gonna load a new scene. Okay. Okay, that's fine. If I don't know what I'm gonna say, if I don't encounter the initial problem again of the ship disappearing when I play, or ever get to a point in this video where I can explain it, I'll just explain it now. You can't have an object inside a collider that has a collider on it. If it's a trigger, if the sphere collider was a trigger, I could be inside it, but it's not a trigger. So when I play the game, the ship is just being pushed outside the collider. And it's also kind of registering a collision as well, because it was, inside it. So having a collider on it that's not a trigger is basically making it a solid object. And I can't have a solid object inside a solid object, so it pushes the ship out, because the ship can move and has rigid bodies and stuff. So it's being thrown out again. And I think that's because I didn't click is trigger on the sphere. But once I do that, should fix itself. Like, the ship should be able to fly around within the sphere. We shall see. If I click on the sphere, if I click on anything, if I just sit there, scratch my head, looking at the screen, going, what am I going to do? Now, to be fair, this is a fairly complicated thing to jump to, from doing like just 2D side-scrolling levels to doing a 3D rotating sphere level at the level that I was at this stage. It's a very difficult and ambitious thing to try. And I do like to make things difficult for myself, so, that's life. It's not life, it's my life. And it's something that I still do today, is that I give myself more work than I need to and try and make things cooler and more difficult than they need to be. And the ship has disappeared again. Which is how I ended up with a simple assignment that is now one of the biggest things that I have ever done and attempted. Because I like ambitious stuff and to make things more difficult for myself. So this is what I'm trying to do, make this a little bit more difficult. So as you can see, I still haven't ticked is triggers, so that is why I'm being shot out of the sphere. Changing the size of the trigger isn't gonna, or the collider isn't gonna do anything. I'm just gonna make sure the ship is there. Ship has a rigid body. This has a collider. It needs to be a trigger, especially. You'd think I would have known, because on the sphere level script, I have put an on trigger exit, which means I know that this should be a trigger, and I have not ticked is trigger. So why have I not done that? Colliders. So this has a sphere collider on the sphere level. They collide with rigid bodies. So this has a rigid body on it, and it's got a mesh collider within it. So these two things. Sorry, not these two things. This thing and the rigid body are colliding with the collider on the sphere. And that is what's basically just going, no, shoop, push it out. Push it out, pushing, harder. So yeah, the sphere is basically giving birth to my little ship. And there's an image you will not be able to get out of your head for a while. And you're welcome. It's like so you could actually see it getting forced out. Click it. I swear to God, if I hover over it, there we go. If I hovered over it and didn't click it, I would be very annoyed. So it's playing. I can move around. There we go. I fly out of it. I don't know if I was destroyed or not. I wasn't paying that much attention. On collision exit, player debugger log collision detected. Don't even know if that did that even register. There's nothing on my console, which is strange. So it didn't even seem to register that the player had oh yeah, on collision exit, right. So it should be on trigger exit, that's the thing. When would you exit a collision? I guess you could hit something, and then when you come away from hitting it, you could do something. When would that be applicable? If you can think of any reason when that would be necessary, comment below, because I'm just kind of maybe if you're doing like an action game sequence and you step on a mine, so you collide with the mine, but then the mine doesn't go off until you step off the mine on collision exit, maybe? That's something I could think of. If you can think of anything else, or comment below and let me know. You fly out. It's the sphere is untagged, but that's fine. It's a trigger. On trigger exit, the ship has flown out, and nothing has happened. For the game object tag is player, collision detected. It has not detected a collision. The player is definitely tagged as a player because it needed that for everything else, for the explosions to happen in the other levels. I wish I'd zoomed out so I could see what's going on in the scene a little bit better. On trigger exit, yeah. I honestly, I don't think that's going to work. That's when you go into a trigger. I'm starting out inside it, so I fly through. Nothing's happening in the console. So that's not working. Nothing happening in the console. So interesting. Rocket is tagged as player, yep. The sphere has the player attached. Although actually technically for this it doesn't need it to be attached. It just needs the player to be tagged. Player is spelled correctly in the tag, P-L-A-Y-E-R, yep. Debug.log, collision detected, it's not doing that. Private void on trigger exit. Should have worked. Should have. Should have worked. Why is it not working? And I actually don't know. That should be working. I don't need the sphere level to have a tag in order for it to recognize that. I don't know why there was a script on the main camera. In order to recognize that something has entered its trigger or exited its trigger. Nothing happening on the console. Well, I mean, it's not working because this needs to be on trigger enter, on trigger exit, or on trigger stay, really, I think. On trigger exit it should be, because I'm leaving the trigger. I'm starting inside. When I leave the trigger, if the other thing is tagged as player, which it is, then it should pop up on the console that there was a collision detected. Now, the collider is slightly further out than the level, so I'd actually have to make sure I'm flying through that. But okay, we'll bring that in just to see, because I don't... And I'm zoomed out enough that I can actually see where the ship is going. So let's see. You fly through it. I've flown through the collider, I'm still flying through the level, and nothing's happened on the console. Why? Why, oh, why, oh, oh, why? I'm stumped. If anybody has noticed something that I have not, something that I've overlooked, something that I've done wrong, or has any ideas on something I could try to fix this, please comment below, because I have no idea why that's not working. It should. So when it's not a trigger, the ship just gets expelled. When it is a trigger, it should reference that I've left. Well, I don't know. Nothing in 3ds Max. So this has nothing to do with it. So maybe I'm just getting sick of it. I want to go back to the sphere, and what do I want to do with the sphere? What do I want to do with the sphere? Well, I don't know. Just look at it, I guess. It's a pretty sphere. I mean, it's nice. It's not my best work, but it's certainly not my worst. Am I going to do anything with it? I am going to make a snowman. Do you want to build a snowman? I don't think that's enough for copyright, so I'm trying to boolean out a hole. It's not working. Booleans again. Oh, fucking booleans. Kind of just, I'm guessing I just wanted to cut a hole there. I don't know why. And the worst part is, I'll never know why. Because this is the last thing that I have recorded on this project to date, before college started up again and I had to start working on that kind of stuff. So I don't know what my plan was for this sphere. I can't remember. And we are now at the end of this episode. An error occurred. Oh, this is a perfect way to end it. An error has occurred and the application will now close. Do you want to attempt to save a copy of the current scene? 3D modeling software is notorious for freezing and crashing, so make sure you save religiously if you're using it. I think that is a perfect place to end this video. With just an error has occurred and it's not working. So yeah, I do intend to go back to this project at some stage. Actually, you know what? Before I sign off, I'm going to go and see if I have the build to see if I have fixed, at the very least, the explosions so that they appear where they're supposed to in the correct way. So bear with me, back in a second. Okay, so I couldn't find the build, but what I could find, well, I found a build, but it was for a very, very early version of this that still used the basic ship and didn't have all the levels. I'm going to see if this works because I'm now using a later version of Unity. So, oh, there is some kind of... No, I never fixed it. That's sad. I never fixed it. Oh, well. Why? Why did I never fix it? So I've got all my levels here, my scripts. Let's just... While we're here, we'll do a very quick check on my scripts. I will. Now I can't scrub through this because this is me actually live doing some work. Oh my god, this is so exciting! It does mean I can't scrub through to speed up Visual Studio's opening, but I can cut it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stare at the camera until Visual Studio opens. I need time to feel strong. I need love to move on. After all is said and done, gonna be the only one. Oh, do you believe life after love? I can feel something inside me saying I really don't think it's strong enough. Oh. Okay, and we're back. So it's finally open. So where are we? Rocket ship. So we're doing some stuff there. That's fine. On collision. Instantiate explosion prefab. This game object will transform. Okay, well, we know what we're going to do. I'm going to take that out. Game object to transform. Dot position. Comma. Okay, so while typing in my code, I set up some hotkeys in OBS, which stopped recording when I hit OR for this. So basically what I did was I put in game object of transform position and quaternion identity for the rotation and just destroy the game object if it works, and then I tested it. And what we saw was that it works. Game object is destroyed. And then the level is reloaded, so it is actually working perfectly. So that is good. I then decided to try and have a quick look at the sphere level and see if I could do a really simple quick fix for that, but I couldn't. So that's something that I will have to try again some other time. So I'm going to end this video here again. So I'm going to say thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, share it with people you think might be interested in this kind of content, and consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any of this cool upcoming content that I have coming up. And you know, you got a little glimpse of how things are going to get when I catch up on myself and start doing more live recording while I'm working kind of stuff. So that's all to look forward to. So thanks very much, and I will see you guys next time.